Hi, this is Wanda from Little Rose Artworks, and today we're going to make a resin sculpture. I've been gone for a couple of weeks, but I'm back, and we're going to make this sculpture. It's a school of fish just swimming along, and this idea is from Sue Findleys Designs, where she did a freeform sculpture with resin, and she used those little crystals or the acrylic gems. I used beads and put together this little piece, which I think is a lot of fun. I also wanted to point out to you all that I have found that young lady that I have talked about several times in making waves, though I didn't make any waves in this one. I frequently make waves. Anyway, resin waves. It was from hawkhill.com, and the young lady's name is Lindsay Ann Brenner. So I wanted to pass that on and give her credit where credit is due, because that's where I got the wave making ideas, how to do that. So, all right, let's get to it. Let's head on down to the basement and make this little school of fish. At the start of this project, I thought I was going to do my typical resin work with the outline of hot glue, but it quickly changed, and so you will see the resin fish here. But what I'd like to point out is the beads in resin that I have done over here on the right hand side of the screen. You see me working on the goldfish. So what I did was I just took resin and put a lot of the little glass beads in there and then formed them. You see the top one did not form because I did not have enough beads. That's easily fixed as long as it's early in the game. So I scraped them all off, added a lot more beads, made sure they mounded up really well. You have to be able to have enough beads that they're all coated with the resin, and then I mounded them up, and I continued from there mixing my beads. I mixed some glitter in that one and mounded them up, forming my fish. And I was using pop sticks or craft sticks and just kept pushing them along, pushing them up, as I said, mounding them up. Now I did have one not turn out, and I could not fix it after I let it set, but the rest of them worked just fine. Now, at this point, it was overnight where the fish all set, and I have able to pick up my resin beaded fish, and I'm placing my wires in them. You do have to be careful when you're putting your wires in. You don't want them to stick out the back. You also want them to sit in the fish where it is going to be a good position, like it's going to be level, it's going to be not uneven, too heavy on one side, so you have to experiment a little bit with them while you're placing your wires in. You see, I have repositioned my wire several times until I got it right on this one. Continue to place your wire in all of the fish that you're going to use for your project. Now, not shown is some pieces that I made out of polymer clay. The piece that I'm holding there, one of the sea anemones, that was made out of polymer clay, and that little piece of coral there was made out of molding paste and wire. And then they were both, the polymer clay, of course, was baked in the oven, and I'm painting them. These are just going to be little accents in my ocean scene. I also am using some colored gravel, some shells that I've had, and I'm going to use those little glass globules. I will list everything in the comments. And that is the piece that I'm going to use as my base, and I'm just fitting, trying to figure out where everything's going to go. I did use a little coaster mold that I'm going to be using for the base because I do want that setting on a nice piece and being able to attach the others well. So I'm going to be pouring some resin, pouring it into that base, and I'm using a 2-part resin here. It is a 1-to-1 mix, and I'm not going to school you all on mixing resin. If you have any questions, put it in the comments. And I colored my resin, and I will again have all my materials listed, and I'm just placing my pieces. Now you see that I first attach things with super glue and the accelerator that holds things very well in place so that you can then put resin around. Resin always has to be put in after you have them super glued in place, because then that will hold them firmly for their final hold. So I put my pieces on, and then I will drizzle resin over them. Now for the placement of the fish. This is the next day, and I'm going to figure out where I'm going to place my wires. But I'm going to apologize, it is not the next day, because what I'm doing here is I am using some of the resin to make sure that my fish are well attached to the wires. So you have to add resin there. And this is the next day. I'm taking my wires and pushing them into my wood piece. Now this wood piece was a very dry, rotted wood piece, so I will be coating it with resin. But as I place my fish, I'm using some resin to make sure, again, that it's held in place. So even though they're stuck in there, I did not have to use a drill, but they're just stuck in there, I have to use the resin. And now I'm testing the next day to make sure everything is set really well. Now I am adding some globules because the wires themselves looked kind of just weird standing up there with the fish on them. So I'm adding these glass globules. I am using super glue and then the accelerator, the CVA accelerator, which this type is actually Instaset. You can spray it on your super glue and it holds immediately. So I'm attaching all those little globules, which I think look like little bubbles going up. And then I am coating everything with resin. Again, the super glue is always just a first hold. Then I go back with resin. And because that piece of wood was so dry, I decided I was going to coat the entire bit of wood with resin to give it a nice lasting finish. And there we go. So all of those globules were coated on the back with resin. Every piece was touched up, and now we are going to demold it. I did put some little gravel in there at the bottom as well. So demolding, and there you go. Very easy piece. Very nice piece. I'm going to do some other things in the same manner. Added some beads along the bottom just to add a little sparkle. I hope you enjoyed doing this piece with me. I appreciate you following along. Again, everything's listed in everything of the materials used are listed in the comments. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Thank you again. Please like, subscribe, and keep tuning in. Bye-bye.